My own perception of things is that we are entering a world where AI is going to displace a lot of jobs and things are going to change massively in a very short period of time. So actually, I think learning how to create revenue avenue for yourselves, entrepreneurship, solo entrepreneurship, using the tools, the platforms that are around you that allow you to do things on your own by yourself without relying on an employer, learning to be self-sustained. And I think there's going to be some major changes in the next few years. And I think it's going to be tough for a lot of people. And I think the earlier you learn about how to create ways to survive, the better, right? Because who knows what it's going to be like.
Welcome to Object, Subject, Form, a series of conversations exploring the human side of creativity at the evolving intersection of art, technology, and finance. The following conversation is with Margot Rodde, CEO of game studio Creators Corp. For nearly 2 decades, she has been innovating across video games, digital media, and the metaverse, holding a range of strategic roles at agencies such as Momentum Worldwide and Amplify for projects tied to Microsoft, Xbox, and PlayStation. In 2022, she officially launched Creators Corp, an award-winning Fortnite Creative studio, developing new experiences in the creator economy and the metaverse. Today, our conversation will explore the impact of user-generated content and how creators are building immersive experiences to grow their audiences, partnering with IP holders across sports, entertainment, and gaming. Hi, Margot.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on. We met at a metaverse panel, what was it, a year or 2 ago?
No, that's longer than that. I've been doing Creators Corp for a good 2 years now. So yeah, it would have been a good 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
It was a very interesting panel. I'm glad we got talking afterwards and stayed in touch. And so thank you for coming on. So in terms of the creators economy, how would you define user-generated content?
I guess it's any content that's created by a solo creator or a mini studio that's been created around that, that talent, and that's being published on one of the user-generated content platforms. So anything from TikTok to YouTube, Twitter, and then nowadays some gaming platforms like Roblox and Fortnite, Minecraft to a certain level. But, any content that can be published and monetized, created by a solo creator or a mini studio that's been put together around that opportunity.
And you had a bit of a pivot since we last spoke.
Yeah. So just after the pandemic, there was this explosion of the NFT space that made all these big companies feel like they needed to learn and know more about what they thought of as the metaverse. But, the question is, first of all, what is the metaverse? And then why are these things all part of the metaverse? But that's another topic for another time. But yeah, so at the time I was a consultant at Trailer Park Group. They basically brought me on to kind of be the person that could educate their clients, their high-profile entertainment clients, Netflix, HBO, all these guys, about what the opportunities in the space were, whether it was in the space of NFT, which is also part of the creators economy, but on the crypto side, or what people think of as the metaverse. At the time, there was all these crypto-based metaverse platform that worked similarly to the gaming platforms, but
Sandbox and
exactly Sandbox and Decentraland. They didn't really find success in the end. But the Roblox and Fortnite Creative platform did find a lot of success. I mean, they're absolutely massive in terms of audiences, and a lot of these entertainment companies were interested to see how they could integrate their IP into these worlds. In fact, as you know, there's been like some massive deals done with Epic Games directly, like the Disney deal and then the Lego deal. And, there's obviously like a big crossover between the entertainment industry. I mean, the traditional entertainment industry and the gaming industry. I mean, Fortnite has been at the forefront of that for years now with the skin collabs, and literally every single like Gen Z IP is in Fortnite already. Like, every Marvel character is there, every Disney character is there. I mean, it's been happening for years. At the time it was all about like skins, and now it's about like building worlds. But yeah, so that's essentially that's how we met. And then, I was kind of like, I was consulting for Trailer Park Group, and I was looking for my next move. Prior to that, I ran an agency for many years in video game marketing space. So I knew the video game space very well. I also knew a lot about gaming content creators, YouTubers, streamers that I worked with for many years on campaigns.
Sure.
And at the time, I was kind of like looking for my next opportunity. And through that role, I basically started exploring more about like what could be done in Fortnite specifically.
Right.
And then I realized that Epic was about to launch. They already had a creators economy built around Fortnite Creative at the time, but it was very basic and the monetization wasn't great. And I found that they were about to launch a second version of it called UEFN. And I looked into it, and I basically thought, okay, this is going to be massive. I knew that Fortnite wanted to compete with Roblox, which was already huge. And, I took a bet and I decided that, I took the bet that Epic was going to create like a significant opportunity for creators in terms of revenue. At the time, there was barely any creators on the platform. I mean, even today, it's been a year and a half since launch, and there's still only like about 35,000 creators on the platform. So it's very few.
Room for growth.
And at the time it was like less than 20,000. So,
wow.
So yeah, it seemed to be like a really great opportunity, and that's how I created Creators Corp.
And so there's obviously been a lot of opportunities, independently from gaming.
Yeah.
But how are these opportunities for creators specifically evolving in the gaming industry from what you've seen?
Yeah, so that's actually, user-generated content in gaming has existed for a long time. It's called modes, right? And a lot of games have had like the ability to create modes and maps in the game. So like you go as far as, like old school game like World of Warcraft. That kind of game, you could create maps. You just couldn't monetize them at the time. And then came the trend of, this new, user-generated game platform like Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite, where you can actually monetize your maps. So it's the same principle. It's always existed, but now developers can go in and create these games and publish them and just monetize them. And this is something that's fairly new. I mean, Roblox kind of exploded around the pandemic.
Yeah.
And, it's very possible that's because like kids were stuck at home and parents had them on their iPads and they played a lot of Roblox. But Roblox has existed for ages, actually. It's a 12 years old company, and it's only been successful for the last 5 years. I mean, everybody knows Roblox from 5 years ago. So yeah, around the pandemic time.
Yeah, I remember watching people playing Fortnite, and then, learning about Roblox as well. And it's actually very enjoyable to just sit down and watch people play as well.
Yeah, so Roblox is a little bit different than Fortnite. Fortnite, was really created. I mean, the success of Fortnite is really about the fact that it's a very watchable game. And again, that also, I mean, Fortnite is like about 7 years old now and had a big peak around the pandemic. But I mean, it was really popular before then as well. And then, the Fortnite creative part of Fortnite was always part of Fortnite, but the ability to monetize your game only they implemented it like halfway through. So it started like, around like 2020. So just like around the pandemic time. And they had like, like a percentage that would be redistributed to creators that would put out maps. And it's basically the same principle as what it is now, but it was a lot less money at the time. And then they launched what they called UEFN, which is the Unreal editor for Fortnite.
Yeah.
And that's when you were suddenly able to monetize in a really big way. Fortnite is one type of game. Roblox is a different type of game. Roblox is really traditionally was very, very much for like very young kids, 5 to 12 years old. And then Fortnite was a game for teenagers and young adults. However, Fortnite Creative is attracting a much younger audience. So now the audience of Fortnite has gone down to like, probably averages around like, I would say 10 to 12 years old.
Is this like the Roblox audience transition into Fortnite or?
Not necessarily. I think it's more the fact that the games that you're able to create in Fortnite Creative, which have now become like really popular,
sure.
Are more attractive to like a younger audience.
I see.
Mostly because of what you're able to do with the editor. You're not able to like build like super complicated games. So the nature of these games are like mini games, like quick, easy to play, and therefore they like fit like a younger audience.
Snackable, short form.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gaming.
Yeah.
So UGC, like user generated content, it's definitely evolving from what I've seen, the way that brands engage with their audiences, implementing brands into Roblox, Fortnite collaborations with brands as well, almost like pop-ups within the game itself. And with platforms like TikTok and YouTube enabling or encouraging young creators to produce content from a really young age, what was it about Fortnite and gaming that really interested you or excited you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like user-generated game is really interesting. I like user-generated content in general. I think it's really interesting, and I love the fact that anyone can create anything and become successful doing that, whether it's TikTok videos or YouTube videos or whatever. But what's really cool about like making games is there is a craft around it, and it's not as easy and simple to create a game as it is that to create like a short TikTok like dance video and become popular with it.
Or a still or a photograph or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so it takes some serious work and different talents, developers, 3D artists, all these people, but you can do it with very small team, and you can create like super high quality content with very small teams, right? And I think Fortnite does it in a much better way than Roblox. For me, Roblox was very childish, and if you know Roblox, the characters are very blocky.
Yeah,
it looks like Minecraft.
Primitive compared to Fortnite.
Very primitive. Yeah. Fortnite is unbelievable. It's like with UEFN, they gave us the ability to create games that really look like the main games, so like AAA quality games, but we make these games in like 6 to 8 weeks, right? And we're able to like publish like games one after the other, make like different type of games and all that stuff. And that's super interesting to me. And, I come from the creative industry, and I just, I didn't really connect with, I think Roblox is a fantastic business idea. And business model, I wouldn't go as far as call it amazing, because it gets like kids like really addicted, and that's probably a bit of a problem. But
that's like with every
every UGC platform, really. Fortnite, like I actually connected with the style, the characters, the environment, and all the stuff that you can do. And actually, like I can't call myself a gamer. Like I'm not a gamer. My team, they're proper gamers and they really know the space, but I still act as a creative director in the company. I go in and I review, I understand the space very well, obviously, but I will go in and like review the style of the game based on the theme that we've chose. And I'm able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that in Roblox. That would be completely like, I mean, that's not something that I understand at all. It's not my word.
Is it like it's because of a stylistic choice?
Yeah. And it's also like, I mean, like I said, the audience is like very young. Fortnite is like slightly older. So I think it's something I understand, like more like the teen kind of like audience. And then you were talking about brands earlier. And I think that, I mean, again, there are like so many examples of like super successful brand activation in Roblox. But for me, coming from the advertising space, like marketing space, it's easier to figure out how to integrate a brand in a game like Fortnite with the quality of the graphic that we're able to create, the quality of the assets, the environments and everything, than it is in Roblox. For me, it's really hard to like comprehend how that all works. Yeah. But again, some of these activations are incredibly successful, so it does work.
Are you seeing any trends between the two, like between brands wanting to collaborate with, quote unquote, like influence within Roblox versus influencers within Fortnite creating content?
Yeah, I mean, the brands that we work with, they want to be on both platforms, obviously, because they want to reach like both audiences. A big part of the problem is they don't not necessarily understand the difference between the two platforms and how they work. There are some major differences between these platforms. Roblox, for me, it's very much the equivalent of what Facebook was to our generation, right? It has all the elements that Facebook had, from the marketplace to the community aspect to, all that stuff. Fortnite resembles more YouTube. And then if you're familiar with Steam, it's kind of like a mix between YouTube and Steam. So it's closer to YouTube and actually like building content and understanding the algorithm and understanding the community around it's so similar to YouTube. I mean, my like what I look at in terms of like example and in terms of like success stories is very much like the YouTuber studios, like Mr. Beast and Dude Perfect type studio, because that's how it works on Fortnite Creative. Roblox is different, and it's not my area of expertise, but I obviously understand how the ecosystem works. And it's, one major difference is, for example, in Roblox, you can create skins and sell them in your game. And there's no restriction on how to do that. So if you're a brand, you can come in, and if you're Nike, for example, you can come in and create your Nike word in Roblox. Yeah. And then you can create your Nike store within your game, and you can sell hoodies, t-shirts, sneakers, all that stuff, and monetize them, right? In Fortnite, you can't do that. In Fortnite, you can make a game, and you can make a good game that people are going to want to play, but you can't sell anything. Fortnite has the control over skin sales. Only Fortnite makes skins, and we are rewarded based on the engagement in our game that then will lead to skin sales.
And Fortnite, do they track that?
They have a way to track that. Yes. So they track that. So actually we don't have that exact data. They don't share it with us, but you are rewarded more, and they have a way to track it. So for example, if you make a game that there are a lot of collabs within Fortnite with influencers, celebrities, brands, and all this. So if you make a game, let's say you want to push your audience to buy car skins. Yeah. If you make a game that's designed around cars and race and all that stuff, it's very likely that after the game they're gonna go and purchase a car skin, right? And therefore, you're going to be making more money for your game and the number of like total plays than you would if you made any random game that doesn't really have any association to any skins in Fortnite.
Gotcha. And so how are brands specifically partnering with creators? Like, how are creators monetizing their content? I know you described like, you create a game or create an environment and then, based on skin sales, but what are brands specifically looking for with these collaborations? And I'm sure you've had a few successful ones, is part of your company, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's two different things. So like talking about Roblox first, because that's like a really good example of like things that you can do that can be successful. Brands don't necessarily know, and agencies don't necessarily know how to make successful game for the community on these platforms. So they've realized over the last few years that it is best for them to go and collaborate with a creator that has made a very successful game, understand the audience perfectly, and either create a completely like branded word, but made by that creator specifically, or create a branded area in one of the top like performing games in Roblox, right? And then again, with Roblox, they can do whatever they want. So they can go in, create their, let's say, Nike area in the Adopt Me game in Roblox, which is like the most popular game on the platform, and create a store and like sell skins, and the creator obviously will help, push the sales. The game already has like a huge audience. So that's a way to make it like instantly successful. On Fortnite, what's interesting is, brands and agencies have tried to like kind of like replicate that. And they've over the last few years, there's been a lot of brands creating their own Fortnite branded words. And they also use creators. But it's actually been very unsuccessful. There's not been, so I think the main problem is, the way the platform works and the fact that the creators that have been hired to create words in Fortnite are very, very good devs that are able to build super quality words. But because they are taking the brief from an agency that doesn't necessarily understand how the algorithm works, how the community thinks, etc. They will build that word for the brand exactly as they've been told, and the audience just doesn't like it and they don't play it. And because of the way the algorithm works, if you're not immediately pushed into certain rows, you'll disappear from discovery. So you'll never be seen anywhere. And there's actually been like some incredible example where like the brand would put like a lot of influencer marketing dollars behind a launch, and they would hire like massive Fortnite streamers like Nikke30 or like Ninja, that kind of guys.
Right.
And this guy would go and stream the games and have 10,000 concurrent viewers, and no one would actually join the game because they were not able to either find it in the first place, or they put off by the fact that it's like all branded. It's not like in line with what they like to play or want to play. And they just, they enjoy watching their favorite influencer play it, but they just can't be bothered to play it themselves.
To actually pick it up themselves.
Exactly.
And then would I be right in thinking like, influencer A would have like specific genres of games that they would be streaming so that the attention from their audience may feel inauthentic if they're just playing this game from said brand?
Possibly. Yeah. But I just think that the players on the platform, they're really looking for certain type of games right now. And if you do anything that's like any different than what they love, they just don't connect with it. So the best approach for brands, and that's what we do at Creators Corp, is actually to create a really good game that is appealing to the audience first and foremost, potentially partnering with a big influencer. And, we do partnerships. So we do, we work with the influencer, but we are the ones in charge of creating the concept, creating the game mechanics, etc. Potentially based on the type of game that that said influencer specializes in. Some of them are very generalist. Some of them are very specialized, particularly the pro players. So we would create the concept. We partner with the influencer. Their part of the job is to promote the game. Our part of the job is to make a game that works perfectly for the audience.
Yeah.
And then together, we go to the brands and we let them know that this game is coming up and it's going to hit a certain number of like players at launch because of the promotion, because of the type of game. And then we onboard brand as sponsors.
So you do it the other way around. right?
Exactly.
You create the game,
Exactly.
find the brand.
Exactly.
Got it.
So
Got it, yeah.
similar to the festival model, right?
Yes.
You know, Coachella is a festival with its own IP,
Yep.
its own talent that, you know, come and perform, and then you bring in the brand sponsor.
Right.
You don't do it the other way around,
It has
right?
an audience already.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that in the music space, I'm sure it's been done, but like people prefer to go to Coachella than the Pepsi festival, you know,
Right.
featuring X, Y, and Z, right? Because it's more authentic the other way. And so we find the same thing on Fortnite and on these platforms.
And you've said the word community quite a few times, and it got me thinking about how UGC is influencing like a sense of community within the gaming world and beyond, right? So how do you see like the future of connection playing out within the gaming space? Mm-hmm. I've often heard like, you know, gaming could potentially overtake social media as we know it due to the interactive nature and the connection and the experience that you have playing a game, and potentially having smaller social groups that have similar interests versus these larger social platforms where it's kind of a free fall, right? You may find your way due to the algorithm, you may find your way into a niche area of, let's say, X, but that's through the algorithm. So how do you see the future of connection playing out?
Yeah, I mean, you know, with this platform specifically, it's all about community. Gaming has always been about community. I mean, if you were like a FIFA, like, you know, player, like, you know, you were a part of that community already. And this is like, we're talking about a AAA game that, you know, you didn't initially play online. There was no like online component. Gaming's always been about community. I mean, these online games have been around for a long time, and you know, like people like gather around a certain game and love a certain game. I mean, my generation, it was like World of Warcraft, and you know, my friends, they were playing that. Like, you know, there was a group playing that, and they knew like all the people in the same city or like in the same country that played that game. With this platform, it's even pushed even further, right? I mean, the kids on Roblox, and I would always recommend to parents to be very, very careful about this stuff, because they're online nonstop and they chat with all sorts of people and they make friends with anyone from anywhere in the world, from any country. Obviously, some parental control is important because, you know, you never know, but you know, they play these games with friends all day long, right? What we see in the Fortnite space is, I mean, there are like community that are being built around certain game genre, you know, even like certain like game mechanics. Obviously, there is a community of creator now, and that's, you know, that's something we are part of, because we are a studio in the space, we're a mini studio in the space, but the reality is the platform was built for individual creators. So 90% of the creators that create games on the platform are you know, kids on their own, doing their own thing. So obviously, if you want to learn, if you want to improve, you have to be connected to the other people in the space that are doing cool stuff, right? And so in our space, everybody shares clips of their work, like tricks, like of how to do certain things, etc. And it's super interesting. And then there is like the need to like really create communities around your creator's account. I mean, your creator's profile, where if you're an independent creator, it's, you know, you are, your name is Spanky Sully and you're known because you made this game and people will follow you on Twitter. They will follow you on like social, you know, other social platform, TikTok being like a big one for gaming content, YouTube Shorts. And you'll build a community around what you do, and they will follow you the same way as they follow Mr. Beast or others. And for us as a studio, that's a question that we're trying to, I mean, that's something that we're trying to solve right now. It's how we also create that sense of community around what we do, and how we, you know, create our own identity, you know, our own IP. How do we make sure that people know that they're playing a Creators Corp game,
right? And
they learn how to love what we do, specifically our style, etc. Right? And that's a harder thing to do as a studio, but that's something that we're thinking of. I don't know what we're going to come up with next, but we'll come up with something. But yeah, I mean, community is a part of everything we do and everything that happens and on the, like around user generated content, because that's the purpose of it. You have to be successful. You have to have followers. You have to, create all that good stuff.
Do you see there being a connection between like the online communities and then any sort of in real life events or meetups?
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you look at like the big YouTubers, like half of what they do is online, and like a lot of what they do is actually physical. Like there's a guy called Squeezie in France. He's like super famous. He's one of the top YouTubers in the world, and he's really big at like hosting events. Like he would host like a YouTuber Formula One event, and they literally create a Formula One. Like they have YouTubers drive Formula One cars. And these events are more viewed than the actual like traditional event, which is crazy. Another group that does that a lot is the Sidemen, right? They do football. They mostly do like charity football, but their events are like, they sell out in minutes. They end the viewership online is crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's always a crossover between like physical and online. And even with what we do, I mean, that's not something that we have been able to do yet, but we're planning to do. But we had this collab with Steph Curry. We made a Steph Curry death run very early on. We were still like testing, what could be done, what would be successful, how to convert like, a major sports star audience into like, Fortnite. It's very, it's difficult. But, we did a couple of things. We did influencer activation, and we brought the influencer to the game, and we did create content at the game with staff and the players. And that's a very small, like, kind of like crossover between physical and digital.
Sure.
But that did help create some hype. But we were, if we had the budget and the time, we would have created like competition where like, some of the winners of the competition in the game would win to go and, compete physically at the stadium with the Warriors, and we would do these kind of things, and we will in the future.
More of an integrated experience
exactly.
in real life.
Exactly.
Yeah. For the average person, how do you see this trend shaping the creative skills and career aspirations of the younger generations, right? Like you ask your niece or nephew, you want to be a YouTuber, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like there's definitely a shift, or there has been a shift in general, right?
Yeah.
What trends are you seeing, or how do you see this changing shape?
I think it's amazing, especially in my space, because it requires like certain like skills to create what we create. And I think it's amazing that this platform allow anyone to learn the tools and then create and publish and monetize, right? I think it's amazing. I mean, the reality is at this point, if you ask, I think there's been some surveys, but if you ask like kids between like 12 and 16 years old, what do you want to do? Like, when you're older, number one is YouTuber, right? They all want to be YouTubers. Is it sad like that, kids wanted to be astronauts and now they want to be YouTuber? Maybe. But, I think like people often think about this job really as like, how can I put it? It's like, it's not as great as being an astronaut or a mathematician or whatever, like,
right,
or like,
glamorous,
it's, I think like it requires a lot of skills to become a successful YouTuber. And it's amazing that, again, you are able to just pick it up on your own and do it. And really, when you become like a YouTuber, a TikToker, like a successful one, like a game content creator, you're a mini entrepreneur. That's what you are. You're an entrepreneur at a small level with a small team. The ones that succeed build, huge teams around them and then generate like, hundreds of millions of revenue for some of them. But even at a smaller level, at a micro influencer level, it's like running a mini business.
Yeah, you mentioned team,
Exactly.
like at the beginning of the conversation. And I think with maybe traditional sort of social media influencing, it's like, you have your tripod, you can record videos, edit. There's apps that enable you to do this pretty quickly. But when you get into creating the game on a platform, you start to need to have a larger team. Would you say that it's a lot harder to get involved in the gaming space as a solo entrepreneur?
I think it's no, but it's maybe harder to monetize properly at this stage,
Okay.
right? And I think that's also because it's new, and bear in mind that AI is changing things every day, and the tools we're using are like largely AI based, and they're becoming like more and more powerful every day. So I don't think it's harder. You have to have like certain skills that aren't skills that everybody can have. Like, I mean, becoming a developer is harder than editing like YouTube video, than filming
Exactly.
yourself and editing a YouTube video,
Right.
right? So it's harder. It takes more time, but you don't necessarily need to be a team to do it successfully. In fact, like on Fortnite anyway, like the top like 10 creators that are literally making all the money on the platform,
Solo.
they all solo. I mean, they were solo in the first place.
Right.
If you're going to build a business from that to something a little bit bigger, then this is when you start onboarding like other devs. You start onboarding people to take care of your social media strategy, your community management, production, etc., etc. But I don't think like in our space, and it's the same with the YouTube space or the TikTok space, the teams, even the larger ones, they're never like really big teams. I mean, the Dude Perfect guys, we worked with them recently, and I was looking into them today, and I think like the core team it's only like 6 or 7 of them, right? So, and this is like a company that's currently valued at $1 billion, right? So it's mini studios really. Like it requires a few people on a business side. Obviously, like if you're going to run $1 billion company, you have to have a few operational people on your team, but it doesn't require like really large teams like you see in like traditional entertainment.
Yeah. And what are the attention cycles like? I don't know. So you think about, I'm going to create a game because I'm seeing data that's, pointing us towards this. And then you go and you start to develop. Developing isn't a fast process, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. How quick are these cycles of interest?
They're quick.
Quick, yeah.
Yeah, they're quick. It varies, right? I would say anything between like a lifespan of 2 weeks to maybe at this point up to 3, maybe 6 months. 6 months at max for some of the games that are the most popular, like the really most popular. On Roblox is different, and it's also due to the algorithm and the way discovery is done. On Roblox, they have games that have been successful for years, and then they're still able to creators are still able to launch games that have a longer lifespan.
Yeah.
On Fortnite, it's a lot shorter. It's very much like it's more in line with YouTube again.
Okay.
Yeah. But the cost of production is very low, so you can. Even if you make a game, even if it takes you like 6 weeks to make a game, if you've got like a good success for like, let's say 2 to 3 weeks, you will hit like with a good game, you will hit like a 50% margin easily.
Okay.
So, that's
what defines a good game?
A good game is a game that either followed trends and hit at the right time before it's too late to miss the trend, or a game that's like really original and different and get the kids like super like interested and I mean something new and fun. It's got to be bug free and crash free.
Oh yeah,
bug
yeah,
and
bug
crash free, and that's tough. That's a really tough thing to do, right? Game production, game development. You never know until you've got your working environment and your live environment, and you never know what's going to happen in live environment. So a lot of the time, games get killed. Even good games where we've developed games and spend weeks doing it, and then for some reason we leave some crashes and it will kill your game instantly, because Discover will not pick it up if there is something wrong, and player leave very early because they can see crashes or whatever. They will leave, and then the algorithm won't pick it up, and it drops it, and then that's it. It's done. And then relaunching it is very complicated. And on top of that, Fortnite has a and I think it's the same in Roblox, but they've got a way to block you from copying your game and copy pasting, right? Because otherwise everybody would do that, and you will never have like anything new on the platform. But original, yeah. And then it needs to be polished. Like it needs to be slick and look good, and it needs to be creative and all these things. Yeah. But we also see games that become incredibly successful and that are like what we consider like shitty games. And it's the same on TikTok. You've got some everywhere. Like videos where you like, why is this becoming viral, right?
Yeah.
And it does. So that happens also on the gaming platform. But I think it's harder to have like a big success if you don't put in the effort, on the gaming side of things. Again, because of these little technical things that, could ruin your content, which would never happen with a TikTok video or YouTube video.
Right, exactly. You don't have to worry about the bugs. You've got to worry about your content, your edit.
Exactly, right, yeah.
So if I have an idea for a game, how do I get started?
If you wanted to get started yourself, you would obviously, it would be better if you were already a Fortnite player, because then you would know and understand the platform. But if you didn't, if you were a dev and you had not played Fortnite already, you would download Fortnite, you would download the game, and then as part of the Fortnite platform, you have like a creator account. So you would set up an account and you would sign up to UEFN, the unrelated of Fortnite, and you'll start learning how UEFN works. And you'll go and find tutorials on YouTube, and you just like watch and absorb all of that. You'll start connecting with the community, and you'll start playing around. And even if you were not a dev before, it's designed for anyone to pick it up. Not easily, but it's designed for anyone to pick it up.
It's time quickly. Investment of time.
It's time investment. Like in Roblox, it's even easier. I mean, some of the kids that have become multi-millionaires started from scratch. They didn't know anything, and that's why I said to parents where like they tell me, I'm worried my kids is like spending all this time on Roblox. I'm like, okay, well, make sure that if they really love it, make sure that they spend some time playing and some time building. Yeah. Building is amazing. It's such a great way of learning all sorts of things, right? It's the creative side, it's the technical side, it's learning a new language, because essentially that's what coding is. And it's the future. I mean, the future, and again, especially as AI becomes like a bigger part of it and helps you pick up the tools like more easily, and it's there to help you like build stuff on your own and create stuff on your own. So I would recommend to any parents that have kids playing Roblox to like push them towards the creative side of things, the creation side.
And I bet if their kids are successful, the complaints will
stop
coming in, right?
Go away. But even if they're not successful to a point of making millions of dollars or even a living, it's interesting to start like understanding at a young age how like an economy works, right? Because essentially that's what we call the creators economy, but that's what it is. These words are built in the same way as our own word works to a certain extent, with commerce and exchange and creation and entrepreneurs and all that this stuff. So it's a playful way of learning all these things.
You mentioned like it's beneficial, right, for the kids to start learning about how an economy works. How are you seeing that generation being affected emotionally, economically, socially?
I mean, my own perception of things is that, we are entering a world where AI is going to displace a lot of jobs and things are going to change massively in a very short period of time. So actually, I think learning how to like create revenue avenue for yourselves, entrepreneurship, solo entrepreneurship, using the tools, the platforms that are around you that allow you to do things on your own by yourself without relying on an employer, learning to like be self-sustained and,
evolve new tools.
Evolve with the time, with your time and I don't know. It's going to be, I think there's going to be some major changes in the next like few years. And I think it's going to be tough for a lot of people. And I think like the earlier you learn about how to like, create ways to survive, the better, right? Because who knows what it's going to be like.
Yeah. It's always good to get ahead of the curve and start learning the tools and become more independent.
And also start to transition towards like a new way of life in general.
Right. Yeah, I feel like a lot did change like 4 or 5 years ago with the independence of the individual to be able to generate their own income.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, I work with a lot of like Gen Z and now like even Gen Alpha, right? And they have a very different way of thinking about things. It makes it like harder for us millennials and boomers to understand how to work with them because, they will not do certain things. Like they don't want to go to work physically anymore. Like they hate it. They're not used to it. They don't want to do it. And if they have a way to get out of, having to physically go to a job, then they won't do it,
take
right?
that path. Yeah.
They'll take that path. They also want to be involved in a lot of different things. And it's not everyone, but it's definitely something that I see more and more with the people that I work with, right? Putting them on a full-time contract becomes really tough because they want to do a bit of YouTube content and a bit of crypto and a bit of this and a bit of that. And that's how they make their money.
Which is like the multiple streams of income.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's, it's also a creative way to do it. It's an entrepreneurial way of doing it. And they've been used to that. So they don't want to be like stuck doing the same thing all their lives and being unhappy. And, they want to be able to try different things. And, if they want to go traveling for 6 months, they can do that and then make videos about their travel and monetize them, right?
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's quite interesting. So I think we're living like we're going through a shift of how things work, how our societies work. And, I mean, you can be scared about it or you can embrace it. Yeah. You can, as a parent, probably try to understand it because your kid is definitely going to like take that path one way or another. And I think it's important to live with your time,
Seems like just a natural progression. I mean, like my mom or my grandparents, it was like the one job, right? For most of your life, you probably have had a few jobs along the way, but then maybe you find something that I'm gonna stick here for a good 20 years. Then our generation's a little bit more. You spend a couple of years. I didn't do that. I stayed at one place for 10 years. But exception to the rule, I guess. Like a lot of people bounce around a bit more. There's a lot more of a freelancer mentality.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just keeps expanding and expanding as you go down the generations. Right?
And it's not just with UGC, it's also with all the platforms that become available, like Fiverr, for example,
Yeah, exactly.
Being able to like find like creative work very easily. And
monetize?
To a certain extent, you can also look at like platform like TaskRabbit, where you can do all sorts of like little jobs and and not be stuck in one particular job. So yeah, it's interesting.
So Creators Corp.
Yeah.
What is Creators Corp?
So we are one of these mini studios that, were started around the, user-generated game opportunity. The only thing is I don't know how to make games, and I didn't have the patience to learn how to become a coder. So instead I decided to hire some young creators, to partner with young creators to create a studio and to make games in Fortnite. And yeah, to a certain extent I hire them, but they're also partners in the business and they totally decision makers in anything that we do, right? I mean, I don't, get in the middle of like the decision process of what games we're going to make. Cause I don't know. Like,
Sure.
it's not my thing. I know how to like, start a business, raise capital to, fund a business, structure a business, bring talent together. I know how to do this, but making games, it's not my thing. I do have a passion for user-generated content. So for me, anything that's like new in that space is interesting. I come from the gaming side of things. I missed out on a lot of opportunities to be involved with, gaming YouTubers and gaming streamers and all that. By the time I understood like the opportunity was, it was too late for me to start something and become successful at it. So when that opportunity came about, I was like, okay, this is it. I love, 3D content. I love animated content. I love games. This is perfect. And then I also like, I've got a strong interest in like understanding the algorithm behind these platforms. And so I understood like YouTube quite well already. So that was a natural kind of like, path for me. And, I mean, we're a small studio. We're going to be small until we hopefully get acquired by somebody bigger.
Small
but,
until you're not.
Yeah. I mean, first, like you can't expand beyond what you can do in the space. That's not how it works. Like I said earlier, Dude Perfect didn't become a 300 people company. That's not what they are. Their revenue expanded, but the team didn't expand beyond what's needed to run such a studio. So it's always going to be exactly. So it's always going to be like a small team, and then eventually, we'll probably, hopefully we'll be acquired by a bigger gaming company, maybe a mobile game company. That would make a lot of sense. What we want to do more of is like partnerships with IP holders, whether they are, sports stars or influencers in the gaming space. That works really well for us at this point. But, as the platform grows and changes, it is in Epic Games' best interest to make sure that we can start onboarding like audiences that are external to the game, because obviously otherwise it'll never grow beyond what it is right now. So we've got good hopes that they're going to be implementing, what's necessary for us to onboard like these audiences. So partnering with like IP holders, there's been like some huge deal made already between like Epic Games and Disney and Lego. So working with these like IPs a bit more, like their IP a bit more, and creating interesting things in that space, and other, we have like some potential partnership coming up with Netflix, about like, a Gen Z show that I'm not going to name, but will be very successful again. And a game about that show will definitely be successful. So things like that, right? Things that, make sense for the platform and for us. But yeah, essentially that's what we do. We make games. We make games in Fortnite, and we building our little community around what we do. And, hopefully that will grow, and we'll find a way to like create that identity I was talking about earlier. And then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. How exactly do you partner with these content creators?
You're talking about the developers or
the devs,
yeah. So we have our own dev team, internal dev team.
Okay.
Who are all they all were solo creators. They started on their own. They learn by themselves, but it's hard to like make a living. You know, like I said, you know, there's like the top 10 that are making a lot of money. There is like probably like a top 50. We as a studio are part of the top 50 that do well. And then after that, you've got hundreds of thousands of like creators that make no money, right?
Yeah,
and
which is similar with
exactly
so many different platforms.
Exactly. It's the same everywhere. So even if you're really good, if you're a solo creator, there's a part of luck in your success, right? When you're a studio, obviously you have, you know, staff to research, strategy,
finance,
do all of that, finance that finances the research and strategy.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, this is no longer just, there's always a part of luck, but it's no longer just luck. It's research, right? It's understanding the platform. So yeah, our devs, they're all like, they were all solo creators that decided they wanted something a little bit more stable, and we onboard them and we work with them, and, you know, we'll let them be free to do what they want to do. And
they don't want to sign the full-time contracts.
Well, so we've got like, you know, I have a partner, like our head of studio. He's a partner in the business. Yeah. So yeah, he's full-time, but the other ones now, they all like, you know, do their things. Yeah. And I wouldn't stop them from doing their own thing, because, you know, if I did that, they will end up leaving anyway, right?
It must bring some creativity to the table as well, because if you are juggling a few different things, you're learning over here, you're learning this discipline, you're learning this skill, and it probably all you know, coalesces around itself.
And it's also good for them to do their own thing and realize that it's not that easy to make millions, right?
Right.
Because otherwise they will always have the frustration of like, well, what if I did it on my own and I actually became that guy? Yeah. Right. And that's kind of like the general attitude with these guys, right? Just it's the same in the YouTube space. The minute you find a little bit of success, there's some like arrogance that comes with it, and you know, you might have a game that suddenly makes like $100,000, and if you're 20 something years old, you think, wow, I'm gonna be a big deal. The reality is replicating that is really hard, and so if you don't let them make their own choices, their own mistakes, their own everything, then they're always gonna be under the impression that they could do better on their own.
Right. And that, do you educate on that? Like, do you provide like a sort of a support system?
I mean, we support them as part of the studio, and I think they obviously learn by themselves that all these additional, you know, skills that we bring to the table is what's required to have consistency on the platform, right? And so there's nothing better than learning from your experience. And you know, like the platform is very new, so a lot of them are learning the hard way, and then once they have this learning, they join, they try something out. We're not the only studio in the space. You know, they try different places, different style, different, you know, there are studios that focus more like on brand stuff. There are studios like us who focus more on like partnerships and original games. You know, some people like, some developers like working on the brand stuff. It's different. You know, it requires like, even if these games are not necessarily successful, like, I can see why they like it. It, you know, it's the polish, it's the quality that's required that they can enjoy more than maybe like some of the scrappy stuff that we do on our side. But yeah, I think it's mostly like them learning on their own, and then there's always going to be people that will want to be on their own, independent, and that's what happened with my first partner in the business. You could see that it was hard for him to like monetize consistently, so he decided to join me, and he's great. But he wanted to be a celebrity. He wanted to be a celebrity in the space. He wanted to be the influencer, and
was it more instant gratification, like trying to get that immediately?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think, you know, as a studio, and especially when you partner with brands or IP holders, you have to like portray yourself a certain way on social media, the way you the way you potentially criticize, Epic Games or other creators. Like, you have to like do it in a certain way or not do it at all. And I think he felt like a little bit frustrated of not being able to express himself the way he wanted, because he was a part of an organization rather than on his own being able to do his own thing.
I see.
So, and it's the same when you work with, certain creators, certain YouTubers, streamers. They really struggle with working with brands that stop them from, being themselves.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time in that space. So yeah, I mean, he's doing his own thing, and he ended up being very successful on his own. He was very, very talented. For us, like the game of like, creating beef with other like creators on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, we can't do that. That's not what we do. We want to be friendly to everyone and make sure that, no brands or no IP holders will ever have an issue working with us because we've said certain things.
Yeah. It's kind of thinking about trust. Do you feel like consumers are starting to trust this user-generated content over brand level generated content? I
mean, I have some notes, but yeah, it's at this point, it's like, it's the most trusted medium. Like, it's overall. And, there is a slight difference between user-generated content and influencer content. User-generated content is basically anyone's content, whether they're known or not known. And generally you refer to user-generated content. It's more like, micro-influencer content.
Yeah.
That's potentially been paid by a brand to create that content, but potentially is just creating that content because they love the brand.
Because they want to.
And they want to. And that's the most trusted.
Because there's an authenticity. It's not like a paid ad.
Yeah.
You're not being sponsored to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what about the behavior, right? Like if a creator is working with you or collaborating with you, or a dev, right? There's I guess like a certain way, because they're affiliated with your company and your brand, that you would you wouldn't want them to sort of say certain things or start creating beef out there with other creators, as you said. Are you doing that to kind of protect the brands that you're collaborating with as well, even though that may enhance engagement?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I mean, we're doing it to protect the brand, to protect the relationship.
Yeah.
And again, like, we all about like, sharing insights, even if it's like certain criticism, particularly towards like Epic Games, because otherwise how would they improve their platform, right? So they need to know things that aren't working, things that make us unhappy as creators, because it makes our life harder or makes the monetization process harder, right? So there is a level that's obviously accepted, and there's a level that needs to be controlled because of the nature of what we do. An independent creator will generally work on their own content that's not affiliated to any brands whatsoever. And, sometimes they go from doing their own original content to integrating brands into their content because their content has become so successful. And then their social media, approach becomes different because they know that they've reached a different level. And if they want to monetize further, they've got to behave a certain way. And it's the same with any YouTuber or streamer or TikToker, right?
Right. And brands approach them for
exactly
the content that they're creating versus trying to maybe refine or pigeonhole them into a specific look or vibe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so how do you foresee this type of influencing or marketing strategies sort of being adopted by major brands?
Mm-hmm. It's got to be in our space anyway, and it's the same in other UGC or on other UGC platform, but in our space, it's got to be as authentic as possible, right? I don't think any player will enjoy jumping in a game that's like covered of brands, right?
Yeah.
But again, if they love the game, if they love the content, if they love the brand, the studio brand, they're more likely going to accept this this brand being integrated in their game. In the same way as you love Coachella, you've been going to Coachella, they build their reputation, and now when you work at Coachella, like, you know, it's brands left and right everywhere, right? And you don't necessarily notice it, and you actually enjoy it, probably. So it's the same thing. You gotta build trust, and it starts by like bringing these brands in an authentic way and not overdoing it, and showing the players that you care about their experience in the game more than selling a brand deal.
Yeah.
And once you've built that trust, then you're good to go. I mean, you always have to do it in tasteful manner, but like in a smart and tasteful manner. But, you know, I think that they're more willing to accept it if you do it that way.
And what do the demographics look like, you know, compared to Instagram, TikTok creators?
Instagram is becoming old. I mean, that's our generation.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, so Fortnite is a bit particular because there are like really two audiences, right? There is the audience of Fortnite, the main game, the Battle Royale game. And when it goes to Fortnite Creative, that audience transfers over to like all the combat-based game. And that will be like your older audience. And I would say that it's not as old as it used to be, but it would be like something around like, I would say 13 to 20 years old. And then you have the mini games that are what we were talking about earlier. I mean, there are mini games around combat and all that, right? And some older kids play that. But the more like casual games, the more like tycoon, simulators, you know, death runs, prop hunts, all that kind of stuff, it's very young. It's like, it's the same audience as Roblox. So it will be like 7 to 12, but, you know, pushing it. Yeah.
In terms of the devs, like the, you know, male, female split, like what?
It's interesting. We see a lot more girls in the space. And actually, even with the audience, so less in Fortnite than in Roblox, but Roblox is now like gone like completely 50-50.
Yeah.
So the younger kids, I mean, they all, girls, boys, they all on Roblox, right? That tells you a little bit about what the future is going to be like.
Yeah.
Fortnite is still like, still male dominated, but like with regards to the creators, we see more and more female creators, in the space, which is great. Yeah. And I think that, you know, the creator space is maybe like, you know, like there's been like, I mean, a toxic environment for female for a long time in the gaming space.
I was going to mention that,
especially on streams, and it's been tough for girls. But I think in the creator dev space, it's a lot less like that. Like there is a lot less toxicity. It's something that's really like, you know, on the other side, on the more like audience side of things.
On the other side of the camera, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
What advice would you give young creators, especially, you know, women who are looking to, you know, make their mark?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in our space, it's like, it's very much a just do it kind of like situation. Like it's, you know, you have everything to be able to do it if you're passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, from YouTube tutorials to communities to, you know, the tools that are excellent, the platforms that, you know, have been built. I mean, UEFN specifically, UEFN is incredible. I mean, it's Unreal Engine essentially.
Yeah.
It's like saying, I always compare it to, it's like Photoshop and Photoshop Express, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Photoshop is for the real pro, and Photoshop Express for everyone else, but you still have to learn it, and, you know, but you can do amazing stuff with Photoshop Express. Well, you know, UEFN is the same, right? So it's like, it's a matter of like, you know, getting in and then starting to learn and doing it. There's no barriers. There's no reason why someone who's passionate shouldn't be able to succeed in the space. And like I said, the community is very open. It's Discord. It's, you know, we are all over it. Discord, Twitter, X. Everybody communicates nonstop. So if you're looking for a bit of freelance work, learn with the studio. It's out there. Like everyone is looking at the moment. It's really hot. The space is hot. So it's like, get on it and just do it.
There's a lot of information out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was the biggest success that you've seen?
So again, just talking about, we can talk about Roblox as well. Adopt Me is this incredible success. It's like we're talking about billions and billions of plays at this point, right? The company is valued at like, 200 million or something ridiculous. I think they might have sold it actually, but that's the kind of like crazy success that you find. On Fortnite, there's obviously about 10 creators that have made tens of millions over the last 3 years, but they're the same creators. They were there early. They were there prior to UEFN.
Building.
They built games. They were good, but they had that lucky moment. They were first movers, and that's that. And the platform has been, the way the algorithm works right now, it's continuing to put it on top of the rows. So I can't say that this is like an incredible, it's impressive, but that's how it worked at the time. The biggest success that I've seen in Fortnite Creative is basically games that have been built after UEFN was built, after the algorithm changed, and it's actually a duo. They called Birdo and Dag. They're two TikTokers. They got together. One of them was a software engineer at Microsoft. He's very young. He's like 22, I think. And then Dag, I don't know what he did, but he's a creator on TikTok. And they were creating TikTok videos about Fortnite Creative specifically. And they both had, one at the time had 2 million followers and the other one had 3 million followers. So decent following, but nothing crazy.
Sure.
They jumped on a trend at some point. It was about 6 months ago. They built this game called minigame box PvP. The trend was box PvP. They built this mini game. So it's basically a map that has a lot of mini games in them that follow the box PvP genre. And that game exploded. And these guys, it exploded because these guys really understood their audience and how to use their TikTok account to promote the game. And they put in, so Birdo built the game himself, being a software engineer at Microsoft, making TikTok video on the side. He also taught himself how to use UEFN and how to build in UEFN. So he built the game himself. And then they basically had a very strong launch strategy around like creating these videos and making the audience vote for what games they wanted next and all sorts of stuff.
Really interactive, building out in public.
Super interactive. Yeah. And that game exploded. And I think that this is 6 months in now. They probably had about $4 million in revenue. They quit their job, moved to Vegas to not pay taxes. And then,
amazing.
And they're 22 years old millionaires. So yeah, that's probably the biggest success I've seen. But that was a really smart one as well. So it's very inspiring.
And you being a founder, maybe it's a separate whole conversation, but I'm always interested in how people started and how you managed to, raise the capital, how you got your start to building Creators Corp.
Yeah, so it's not my first time raising capital, first of all, so I knew how to do it from prior ventures. I think the key to being successful at like raising capital is first of all, like obviously this is a space that's hot, right? I had started the studio prior to UEFN being announced. I knew that announcement was gonna come.
Okay.
And I knew that Epic was gonna announce something big. I bet on the fact that they were gonna do that because I knew that they were looking to compete with Roblox, right? And so I knew that at that point they had to change their creators' economy and offer something significant to creators. At that point, I knew that there was barely any creators in the space. So I knew that if we were one of the first studio in the space, it was very likely that a lot of gaming VCs and investors would be interested because of the size of Epic Game, because of the size of the announcement and all that, right? So I knew we had to be ready with a structured business before that happened, and that we had to like, you know, start pitching the business ahead of time. And I also knew that we were able to bring in and bootstrap and bring in revenue like pretty quickly through the brand deals, right? Because I knew that brands were really interested in the space, and I come from the space, so there's trust in, even though, you know, I didn't know how to make games, like,
but still trust in you.
Yeah, they trust my career, and they trust like my knowledge and understanding of the space. So I think it's a combination of like, I mean, some tech startups raise solely on like the idea and the concept. For us, being a studio, we had to kind of have like a certain number of things in place, a team, you know, some projects that had started, but you know, the project were really cheap. So initially we just did them as part of like, you know, the devs at least as part of their equity deal in the business, right?
Yeah.
We spoke to a bunch of talent agencies, and WME offered to like represent us, because on their side they had a lot of demand from IP holders to be a part of the game because of all the skin deals that had been done and all this. The industry was looking at it and thinking, well, you know, I have a skin, or I want a skin, you know, I'm whatever, The Rock or Steph Curry or whatever. You know, maybe I should do my own game.
I want to be represented in.
Yeah, exactly. So that was also a part of the strategy to get funded. Like, you get represented by a group like WME, and instantly it brings a lot of like a lot of trust. And then I was connected with a lot of investors. We ended up raising from an angel investor who is a big name in the Hollywood production space, and he was just starting a fund, and we got connected through mutual contact. And you know, I mean, the reality of like really early stages, like pre-seed raise, is that, you know, an angel investor will bet on the founder and on the founding team. So I think it was just a matter of like, okay, we've got something good. We've identified like something that has a lot of potential. You know, this is the size of the market. This is what we can do already with very little, like next to no investment. And you know, they believed in us and then funded us. And then now they're going to be funding the next stage of our growth, which is basically growth capital. But we don't really need a lot of capital in that space, because the reality of what we do is we should be able to generate revenue, and we do. Like we break even at this point. So you know, our raise is really to fuel the growth and invest in different areas, like analytics tools. Like we building like our own set of tools to kind of like scrap the data that Epic is giving us and analyze it exactly, and try to, so that we, you know, we make like more informed decisions on what games to make next, like how to like make the perfect thumbnail, how to, you know, do this, like what are the trends this week, or what have been the trends the last, like, you know, few weeks, etc. Right? These are the things that we're looking to do. But you know, if everything goes to plan, we should be, you know, we should have a hit game soon. And we've had like, we've done well. I mean, we've had games that have easily generated like $100,000. We've had like brand deals, like, you know, a few $100,000 as well. It's happening, but we, you know, we're looking for the big hit from the original game, right? It's the key.
You have to keep rolling the dice and be in it. Yeah, as you said,
until you've got your viral video, then, you know, it's the same.
And keep that conviction.
Yeah,
that you had early on.
Yeah.
I have a question that I ask all of my guests in various different formats. The question is, what does it mean to you to be a leader and a voice in this space? And what responsibility do you feel you have with your mission, or to fulfill your mission?
Yeah, so that's a tough question, but I think, like, me personally, I love being a mentor to like younger people, and I love working with, you know, younger generations. That's something that really drives me. I am like, I adore our like head of studio. He's like a 24 years old kid. He's like so talented. And, he still lives in his grandmother's apartment in Manchester. Yeah. And, I got him a flight to come to LA, and he's going to come to LA. It's going to be one of his first big trips. He's done one before, but I think it's amazing, like to find talent. And I also love to find talents and help them rise.
It's like nurturing young talent.
Yeah, that's really like my thing. I don't think of myself as someone who's got one specific talent. I'm not saying I'm not talented, but I don't have that one specific talent that certain people have, like Branny, for example. And so, I think I'm really good at identifying people with special skills and talent and help them grow. And so I think, for me, that's what makes me thrive, and that's what I love doing, and that's why I love being a leader in the space and continuing to be a mentor to these kids, these young talents. I call them kids. We're talking about like 20 something years old, and
right.
they're not kids, but they're young adults, and they're starting their career. Some of them can be younger than that. Actually, it's happened to us to interview a guy who, we thought was really talented, and turned out he was 16 years old, and we told him, like, you need to finish school first and then you can come and work with us. But, we can't hire you right now. So yeah, I think that's I think that answers your question to a certain level.
Definitely. Do you think you would have like young, like developer programs for young talent? Obviously 100%. you can't employ someone at that young age, but if you're finding talent at a really younger age and then developing them through to when they can actually, become part of the team. Yeah.
So one of the things that's been on my radar and on my business plan from day one is like creating an incubator for young devs, young talents, but, bringing them, like giving them the mentorship that they need and potentially like some opportunities, helping them find opportunities in the space and making sure that they, they thrive and they develop their skills and they become like, top creators. That's definitely like a part of the plan.
Right. And Margot, where do people find you and how can people connect with you?
On LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn person. So,
okay.
So yeah.
We'll find you on there. And I'll be putting those details in the episode description, so you'll be able to connect with Margot.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time and the insight. Really appreciate how deep you went with everything, and also sharing some of the details about how you really got started. I know that some of that is personal to you, so I appreciate you being really open. I think that would inspire a lot of us. It certainly inspired me with some thoughts that I have in my head as well. So yeah, appreciate
awesome.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Object, Subject, Form. Your engagement helps build a community of like-minded creatives as we navigate the complexities of our respective creative journeys together. If these stories and topics inspire you throughout the series, I encourage you to subscribe, share, and follow me through the links provided in the episode description.